This is Viterbi Voices, the podcast, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more directly from our faculty, students, and other members of the engineering community here at the University of Southern California.
This is episode 104, featuring Kaitlin and Maggie from USC Viterbi Career Connections Office. Tune in to hear about where Viterbi engineers head after graduation and all the resources and opportunities available on campus for students to navigate their path after college.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. This is episode
104.
104. It's really weird to be in three digits.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to say.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody, and Happy New Year, Rhea. Welcome back.
Thanks. It's been nice being back.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you have a good break?
I had an amazing break. It was so nice. I was traveling with my family, so we went to New Zealand for almost 2 weeks, which was
New Zealand.
Beautiful. It was so beautiful. Yeah. Wow. It was an amazing experience.
Summer there, right?
Yeah, it's just the beginning of summer there. We rented a car and road tripped around the whole country, which was really cool. Oh, around the North Island for 3 days, South Island for a week. My brother and dad are like huge Lord of the Rings nerds, so we saw a bunch of the sites.
I was going to ask, is that why you went?
Not the main reason, but my brother was a lot more enthusiastic about going after he realized that Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were mostly shot there. But I was there because
you did the tour and see the
we
Hobbit
did the
houses?
Hobbit, the Hobbit, which is super cool. Like they have maintained them really well. All the tour guides are super well trained on and this tree was in the movie for like 4.5 seconds, and this is all the work that went into making that. Apparently, they built this entirely artificial tree because the director wanted to have this tree in this very specific thing because the book referenced it that certain way.
Okay.
It's very intense. I learned a lot.
It's all over my head.
But it was just a beautiful country. It was so the water was incredibly blue. There was glacial lakes, glaciers, rivers, mountains, rainforests, ocean. It was
just a
incredible.
lot of nature.
Yeah, which was what I really, really wanted and really needed. So,
That's awesome. What is the cuisine that you think about now when you think of New Zealand?
Yeah, it's
because I can't think of anything in my head right now.
Yeah, so there's not really a lot of traditional New Zealand stuff per se. There's a lot of the industry there is farming, so there's a lot of really fresh
meat and cheese.
A lot of meat and cheese is really good. They're really well known for their dairy products, and then honey is really big there. So they have this thing called Manuka honey, which is from these certain flowers or something, and it has Yeah, exactly. And it has these healing it has antioxidants or something, so it's really good for you. Really good lamb and goat meat because there's just sheep and goats everywhere, and they all are running around literally, and it's all
so
free range,
right
I guess. Me too.
I just realized
that
we're recording this at lunchtime.
Yeah, and they have a huge international population, so there's a lot of really good international food. Yeah. The most interesting thing to me was as soon as we landed in Auckland in the North Island, all the signs were in both English and Mandarin, which was that blew my mind. And I know this is geographically very close to China, but I didn't realize it was that big of a thing where the signs are literally in both languages.
I had no idea.
Me neither. It was cool.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, rely on Viterbi Voices, the podcast, to give you fun facts from around the globe.
Here for travel news.
That's what we're here for, the travel news, news update. Well, it is officially 2019. We are kicking off the second week of classes here. You successfully got through your first week.
Yes.
How was it? It
was good. I'm taking a good mix of BME classes.
It's your last semester in college.
Wild. I'm taking 3 BME classes and then 1 GE, our general education classes, which is one on religious war, which is super interesting. It's taught by a rabbi, very cool. Cool dude. His name is Professor Firestone.
Cool.
Which is pretty awesome. And then I'm taking film symposium, which is...
Are you doing the 466?
Yeah, and that
with
for
Leonard
people
Maltin?
the famous movie critic. It's awesome. We had our first session last night, and for people who haven't heard of this class before, every week we get a short lecture, and then we watch an unreleased Hollywood, or we watched a Netflix movie last night, an unreleased movie, and then we get to talk to directors or producers or people who worked on the movie that they can get for a Q&A. So it's a really, really cool class, very different from any of the classes I've taken before. You honestly just sit and watch a movie, but you also get to learn more about the movie industry and things like that. And
What'd you
even
watch?
last night
Are you allowed
we
to talk about
watched.
it?
Yeah, we are. We're just not allowed to record or like bring
Got
any electronics into the room. But we watched IO, which is the new Netflix movie. I think the trailer dropped like 2 days ago, but it's coming out next Friday on
IO?
Netflix. Like the moon of Jupiter. So it's a sci-fi kind of dystopian movie, but it was super cool.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they got the director, 2 of the producers, and a couple of visual effects people to come and talk to us, which was awesome because it's a sci-fi movie and the visual effects are like a big part of it. So it was cool that we got to hear from those as well.
Do you know what you're watching for the rest of the semester, or does it kind of get planned as you go? 'Cause
No,
he has to,
So they have to they have one guy who also got talked to us for a little while about movies that we wanted to see, but there's a Studio Connect guy basically whose job is pretty much getting all these movies ahead of time and constant, we talk about networking in this episode. He's networking 100% all the time and getting all these movies. But they said we had a good chance of watching Avengers this semester.
Oh my God, Endgame?
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and Captain Marvel possibly.
Oh my God, cool.
Yeah, because two Marvel movies are coming out
and
this
they're
spring.
it's made entirely by USC people too.
Yeah, so it's and alumni always want to come back for these movie screenings and talks. They were talking about another one. We have a good partnership with Disney, so Disney movies that are coming out, we have a good shot with, but we'll have to see.
That's awesome.
They also like to talk about how they mix in indie movies and smaller studios with the big ones. So some of them are going to be movies.
Because it's still a film school where you're trying to understand film, not just get the blockbusters.
Yeah, and they throw in documentaries and other stuff like that. So it's I'm excited. I'm going to learn a lot.
Did you know anything about Leonard Maltin before you took the class?
Only from you, from the last episode that we talked about movies, when we talked about, I think it was episode 100, actually, when we were talking about, different podcasts, because you were talking about the movie podcast you listened to. I hadn't heard about him or, how famous he was until you mentioned it, and then I kind of looked him up a little bit, and then he talked a lot about it last night.
Yeah, because I grew up,
yeah.
It was back, pre-internet, you watched TV and Entertainment Tonight and the Film Critic, and he was going to give his reviews.
Yeah.
And that he was one of them. There's Leonard Maltin, there's Ebert, Roger Ebert, and Gene Siskel. So there's Siskel and Ebert, and he makes a joke on his podcast about always being number 3. But there's all these movie reviews, and he wrote prolific books.
Oh yeah.
He was prolific in his book writing.
Yep.
And so I'm always curious about another generation not knowing who he is, but he's also now a prolific podcaster.
Yeah, which is super cool. So he just translated it to the new medium that everyone's listening to now.
Yeah, you should tell him about our podcast. So he's getting shout outs. He's getting shout outs in our podcast all the time.
I totally should.
Because Maltin on Movies, I still listen to that. Anyway, cool. That's a lot on this semester. But for our listeners, this episode is all about career connections, jobs and money and working and where you go and how you get out of USC and what happens. And of course, Rhea will remind our listeners, you're already working at Edwards Life Sciences, right?
I am working at Edwards Life Sciences. I'm really, really excited about it.
Cool. So we're done with you. We got to move on to the others. And we brought Kaitlin Harada and Maggie from our Employer Relations Career Connections Office. And this is all about just talking about employment. And I'm gonna let them handle it, but I'm gonna seed a couple things real quick. Stats-wise, last 4 years, basically, graduates, we're looking at around 3/4 of our students going directly into industry after their graduation, and the remaining going to graduate school. There's a small percentage in between that are doing service and military and a couple other ideas. But basically, getting a job straight out of undergrad is what our students do here, for lack of a better term. About 3/4 going directly into industry and being highly successful. And in the episode, we also talk about another stat, which is salary. You want to know how much you're going to make. And of course, I can't guarantee anything, and no one can. But according to the national statistics, the average of a undergraduate in the engineering fields getting their starting salary is around $66,000 a year. And our students, on average, are making $83,000 a year. So about 25% greater than the national average for an average starting salary, which I think are just some fun little nuggets to throw your way as we start talking about career connections and career fairs and networking and getting engaged and being successful after graduation. This episode's all about it. Before we go into it, though, you should know that Rhea and I have big plans for 2019. Lots of cool episodes are in the pipeline with lots of faculty, student organizations, and we should all start prepping everyone now. We're going to be saying goodbye to Rhea. So get your emails ready. Get your crying videos ready that she's going to say goodbye. So start prepping your goodbyes now, because Rhea will be leaving in a few short months, and we'll have to find a replacement. So we'll start the search.
that'll be an adventure this semester also.
for season 5.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get it out of the way and give it over to episode 104 on Career Connections. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good?
Great.
How was your break?
Wonderful.
Did you guys do anything special?
Not special, I guess. I don't know. It depends on what special is to someone else. But I went skiing and traveled with my family.
Where do you go skiing?
Well, my parents live in Colorado, so usually I go to Park City. But for when I visit them, we do Wolf Creek Pass.
So if you were to choose between all the resorts you've been to, what's the best one?
Well, I'm spoiled. I went to Italy, and that was the best skiing I've been to.
The Dolomites?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Very cool. Wow.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
What made it special?
Well, it was Italy.
Sure, yeah. Other than that, I'm trying to focus on the skiing part of it.
The snow was really good. The mountains are insane.
Yeah.
It's not frequented like the U.S. ones are,
Uh-huh.
So it was just
We've talked about skiing before here, and you don't ski, right?
No.
Right.
No. I've tried. I did when I was really, really little, and then my parents were like, no, we don't like snow. So no, we
don't like cold. We don't like cold.
Yeah, we don't like cold. California born and raised, basically.
I hear you. Kaitlin, anything special, anything fun?
I did a lot of family stuff.
Yeah.
In between Christmas and New Year's, I decided to have a cold, so that was
just decided?
Yeah. I figured while I had some downtime, I'll just knock it out so that I'm healthy the rest of the year.
Matthew and I talk about it all the time. It's like whenever we're done recruiting or when we're on the road, it's like whenever we have the first weekend off or when we go into break, we both get sick. It's just our bodies just realize okay, it could rest now, and then all the immunity breaks down. Well, thanks for joining us on this. I think that what we want to do first is let people know who you are. So we want you to introduce yourselves. Let us know what your name is and what you do here.
Sure. So I'm Kaitlin Harada. I am the director of Viterbi Career Connections.
I'm Maggie Cutler, and I'm the Employer Relations Coordinator of Viterbi Career Connections.
So explain to our audience what Career Connections is.
So Career Connections is going to be all thing related to professional development and helping students achieve their first destination success. So whether that means that a student wants to go on to a full-time job, or that means they want to move on to graduate school, they want to start their own business, or they want to do anything, we're here to really help the student achieve whatever it is that they want to do and what their ultimate goal is after leaving university.
And so our office here in the Viterbi School is specifically for engineering students, and that's part of a larger structure at the university, right?
Correct. So we also work in close partnership with the USC Career Center. And so between both offices, we offer 4 career fairs a year. We do a lot of different networking events. We bring employers to campus. We help facilitate student treks to employer sites. But in Viterbi Career Connections, we are specific and specialist to engineering students.
And specifically working with companies that are looking for engineers, right, Maggie? So that's basically your employer relations. So you're working specifically with these employers, right?
Correct. So I manage all of the on-campus recruiting that employers want to do, as well as online and even some external events. We've been doing treks and other site tours for companies as well locally.
That's awesome. So if a student arrives here, let's say we have a new student that arrives here, and they're trying to understand, okay, what do I do? I just got here. What's the best plan? What's their best first steps? And how do you see their specifically undergraduates, how do you see their life cycle playing out? To basically, everybody wants to get a job, right? So how do they lay out the secret, right? How do you get the job?
That is a great question. So the plan is come into the office. We do have handouts. We're located in Ronald Tudor Hall, Suite 218. And students can call us, they can email us, they can physically come into our location. We do offer both appointments and drop-ins Monday through Thursday between 2 and 4, and appointments are set on an individual career advisor's calendar. And so the best strategy really is come in and let's have a conversation, because every student's path looks so different. We really want to customize the experience to the student. And how you get the job, it starts day one when you step foot on campus. And that's helping you to create this plan of what you're going to do over the next 4 years to help make you be pretty successful. And that can include following along with our 4-year plan. Sometimes it includes studying abroad. Sometimes it includes internships. Sometimes it includes research. Again, we really try to customize based off of the student's path that they want to pursue and giving them best practices, tips, and advice on how to get to where they want to be.
What are the common factors that you find in a successful undergraduate student?
Successful undergraduate students are those that don't just show up to class, get a 4.0, and do nothing else while they're here.
So the answer is not grades.
Yeah. So grades aren't the answer. That's definitely true. Well, grades are really important. What's more important to employers when it comes to filling internship and full-time positions is really the hands-on experience that a student has. They can do that in the classroom on different projects. They can do that as part of a student organization. They can do that as part of volunteer work. They can do that as part of an internship that they've done in previous years. As long as a student is involved in showcasing their engineering skills both inside and outside of the classroom, that's really what employers are looking for.
And you talk to employers directly all the time, right? And are there any fun anecdotes out there that they share about ones they love or ones that they run
Well,
into?
I would say if we're speaking to students that are coming on campus for the first time, employers really value students that make smart decisions and take the time to explore different opportunities. So just because you're a freshman or a sophomore doesn't mean you shouldn't go to events with employers. Employers do early talent identification as well, and networking and staying connected with employers is what makes students become really marketable to them when they do decide to pursue internships or full-time opportunities. So getting as involved as possible in academic things, but also going to information sessions, networking events, all of the events that I help manage and plan. Employers really want to see a lot of students from all different majors and all different class levels attending those.
That's an interesting thing I think we should get across, is that I think sometimes new students or even sometimes our current students will pigeonhole themselves into, like, I am a blank major. This is my major, so that means I need to look at blank companies. Can you give some examples about how that doesn't line up?
Sure. Actually, one of my good friends, who is a chemical engineering master's alumni now, is a great example, and he actually participated in one of our spotlight events earlier this year. And he is, as I said, a master's chemical engineering alumni. He's an operations manager for a startup tech company called FarApp. He works from home. He has a flexible schedule. He lives downtown in a loft. He gets a great salary, and he loves what he does. Yeah, but it has absolutely nothing to do with chemical engineering. Right. So it's just one sort of extreme example of the fact that you can do something that's completely unrelated to your area of study if it interests you, because transferable skills are there. Right. And employers look for more than just what you studied. They also look for, like I said, transferable skills, leadership. He was an international student, so he came from Denmark. He did a lot of cool work over there. He started a nonprofit. He's into music. He did a lot of things other than chemical engineering, but his chemical engineering degree, in tandem with all of that experience, helped him land this great job that he loves doing now.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. You brought up Spotlight. I wanted to talk about some of the other, for lack of a better term, smaller events, because I think the fairs get so much press, for lack of a better term, or is it they're very visible, right? We have these huge career fairs. USC has 2 a year. We have 2 more on top of that. Other schools have smaller ones, but we have hundreds and hundreds of companies lining Truesdale Parkway, and I think to a first-year student, that's intimidating, to walk out to this crowd of people and not know what to do if they make that their first step. So what are some other ways in which students can start to engage? And keep in mind, I totally understand coming into the office, but let's say that there's another event that might be a good kind of warm-up to them, or for them to understand the employment process.
Sure. So there are actually a number of events that we do that are smaller than the career fair. I think career conference is a good one for undergraduate students to participate in. It's professional development, but it's facilitated by employers. So it's one part preparation and learning, but the other part is networking and exploring different companies. A lot of our on-campus events that we do, like information sessions or Trojan Talks as we call them, they are more dynamic than you would think. There are, coding challenges, hackathons, there's trivia, there's alumni that come back from a company and do just really casual Q&A over pizza. So all of those events occur usually in the evening, and they're all through our Viterbi Gateway calendar. So students of all classes can attend those events and sort of start learning how to network and ask the right questions, so when they go to a large career fair, they're not as intimidated and they're armed with a little bit more knowledge.
Right. That term networking comes up over and over and over again, and I think that sometimes tell me about your experience here, Rhea, but like I think you constantly heard, hey, it's time to network, gotta network, go to this event and network.
Yeah.
And is there something in your head or in our younger student's head where it's like, okay, I understand the idea of going to an event. I don't understand the concept of networking. That's a button I don't have.
I think in the beginning, like freshman, sophomore year, I thought that you had to turn something on when you were networking. And I think the biggest thing I realized over the course of college is that networking is just talking to people. And you're just like talking to people normally. So you're not like, I'm having a conversation versus I'm networking. It's like they're the same thing. One of my favorite stories is that my internship over the summer was at Edwards Life Sciences, and the recruiter was actually my ultimate Frisbee intramural captain from my freshman year. So I was networking without even knowing it, just by playing Frisbee with my friends, you know? So it's like, it's the easiest thing in the world, just talking to people about what they do on campus and things like that, and you never know what can turn into something later. Yeah. So I guess there's a little bit of a misconception about networking where you have to be very professional and you can only talk about work-related things. That's not true, and a lot of the best conversations I've had with recruiters and people have nothing to do with what they're talking about at all.
They just want to get to know you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's this idea that don't get me wrong, there's a moment where, you need to put on your best foot forward, and you always need to be putting your best foot forward, but I think there's a certain sense of like intimidation about the formality of a process. Yeah. And like, a career event is a different version of myself. And so then they don't go, or they don't engage, or they don't get out there, or they're scared to. What would you tell the students that are out there maybe not attending your events because they're thinking, I'm not ready yet, right? I think that's the thing, that I'm not there yet.
Well, I think practice makes perfect, and we set up a lot of these events in a safe environment so that a student can go in and practice their networking skills in more of a professional type of environment. But that being said, we also encourage students to network with their peers, with their family members and friends parents, because those are all part of a student's network. Networking doesn't all have to be in person. Everyone should create a LinkedIn account and start networking online. And this way you can really expand your network all from the comfort of your dorm room. But that being said, we also have some programs that we specifically target to help students practice networking. One of them is the Viterbi Industry Networking event, and that happens the evening before our career fair, both in the fall semester and in the spring. And we gear that to be a much smaller event than the career fair. And we give you handouts, we give you practice tips and tricks and questions that you should ask. We give you introduction strategies. How do you walk up to somebody and start a conversation? As well as exit strategy. Once you're done talking to that person and you see somebody else across the room that you want to meet with, how do you leave the conversation gracefully? Because students can sometimes have a tendency to be like, okay, I introduced myself, I'm in this conversation, and then they get a little bit more comfortable, so then they stick with one person the whole night. And really, when it comes to professional networking, the idea is to talk to somebody, have a conversation for 5 or 10 minutes, and then move on to the next person so that you can, again, expand your current network to find different opportunities, to learn more about what's out there and available, whether that be exploring what can you do with your major, whether that be exploring internship opportunities, or maybe just how did you work through this process of being a student to get to where you are today, being successful? Or it could be peer-to-peer networking at some of these events, in addition to networking with employers. We also have a formal networking program called the Viterbi Student Alumni Mentor Program, and that is going to be where you have a one-on-one mentor. And so sometimes that can be a little bit less intimidating because we help facilitate the relationship in the beginning where we introduce you to your mentor. And then from there, you start building that relationship, building the communication with your specific mentor that's assigned to you for the academic year.
I think what's also important to note, I'm listening to this conversation, and I think everything's important for a student to understand, but I think that some of our engineering students, or traditionally or stereotypically engineering students, are looking for the formula. What is the specific thing I need to do to get the job? Do you guys find that at all?
We do. Engineers definitely like the formula. They want to have step 1 through step whatever to get to the ultimate goal.
So I'm imagining, I'm trying to place myself in those shoes. So I'm saying, okay, so I go to the Vine and I get a job there? Or so I get my so you're saying I need an alumni mentor to get my job? Or so you're saying like, and I think that I want to bring that out because I think whether people are overtly that way or not, that is part of this calculus that's going on from a student perspective.
I would agree with that. I think from an employer-facing perspective, seeing what employers are looking for when they come on campus and when they recruit students, networking is sort of an abstract concept, and it's difficult to define and to outline, and there are no steps. I mean, if you lined up 10 Viterbi alumni in a room and asked each one of them how they got their job, every story is going to be really different, and it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be like, I met this person in a bagel shop, or, it's equal parts preparation and luck.
They're also going to think it's like one specific thing that they did, and they're ignoring the things that they did up to that point, right? Oh, I got that job because I knew this one person, and so and they missed their own experiences in there. They didn't realize that they were part of this design team, and they were a captain of this, and they had all these different elements that introduced this larger. What they were doing was networking to create this base of people that they knew, experiences that they had, things that they could speak of, that all of a sudden they either became known or they started to know others that then triggered this one meeting that then ended up in a result. And I think people want to jump to, okay, how do I find that? And that's always the hardest part about this. And so I think that one advice that I would give and kind of distilling this information is that new students start engaging, start being part of things, start joining organizations, and don't do things for the sake of the end result. There is no specific end result to any one of these things. There is just things that you like. And I think you probably found this as well. You thought you were going to like something before you came to college, and you're like, I don't know. Or you had a plan, and that has changed over your time?
Definitely. Yeah, and being open to those changes is really big, too. Because I think there's a lot of random risks that I took over the course of undergrad that ended up paying off really well, because I was like, okay, I'm going to go to China because that sounds cool. So I did the Tsinghua program with Viterbi, and that ended up being super transformative for me. I grew a lot from it, and then I think that I had a lot of really good conversations with recruiters and things about that experience, because I was super uncomfortable in the beginning, and then I got more comfortable, and as a result they realized that I could learn new things really quickly and get comfortable in uncomfortable settings. So there's a lot of stuff that I did just because I wanted to do it, and then it made me more employable, in very heavy quotes, but those are things that I wasn't looking for, but I didn't realize were providing benefits. They were just things I wanted to do.
Yeah, do things that sound cool. Do things that you like.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
And I think it's important to understand that employers don't look at potential hires as a set of skills. You are a whole person.
It's not quantitative.
No, you're a whole person, and all of your experiences really play into whether you're going to be a fit for that company, that position, the culture. And so all of your cumulative experiences really play into how successful you're going to be post-graduation.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I would say, too, understanding that, one, behind every success story, there's 100 times they failed. So don't feel that the first try has to be the successful try or the try that exactly works out for you, because I have never, in all of my life of knowing people, ever heard that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And also remembering that finding your career is not auditioning for a role. You're exploring opportunities just like employers are looking for candidates, and an employer might be interested in you and it might not be the best fit for you too. So don't feel that you have to go out and put on a face or network in a certain way. You are just exploring what you want, and employers are doing the same, and you're going to find your right fit in time if you put in the effort and you are honest with what you want.
Totally. I had 3 different conflicting thoughts while you were talking, and then I've all lost. I've lost every one of them.
All evaporated.
They really have, and they were really cool points too.
Oh no!
I could say that because I don't know what they are. It probably could have been me trying to make up a question anymore. Basically, get out there, put yourself out there, try things, get your knee. It's the blessing of the scraped knee, the thing with raising kids, right? This idea of you gotta do that to learn how to grow. And in college, those scraped knees, that is a metaphor for just messing up and falling flat on your face, right? and meeting someone from a certain company is interesting. I knew where I was going. I found my way back. The other thing that I know a lot of students do, and case in point over here as well with Rhea, is the overthinking of decisions. This tends to happen a lot with seniors as they're making their decision as to what they want to do. But I think it also comes as a result, that's a symptom, I think, of this larger of, I will determine where my career will be. Mm-hmm. And can you talk about the difference between first destination and a career?
Absolutely. So I think career path is really a misnomer on so many different levels.
Like it has an end.
There really is no end, and there's really not a path to guide you.
Yeah.
It's not a linear thing. People bounce around constantly.
Highly successful people bounce around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And sometimes it's the wrong choice that you make that turns out to be the best decision that you've made, because it turns out to be a really great learning opportunity. So one of the things that is really interesting when I meet with students is that sometimes they will be really unsure about an internship or accepting a full-time job offer because they're just like, I don't know, I might be able to make more money somewhere else.
Commitment phobic.
Yeah, pretty much. And the whole idea of a first destination is that that's just the first thing that you land after you graduate, or maybe it's the first internship that you have. It's not a lifetime commitment. It's just a step along the path of your career. Uh-huh. Your career is an ongoing evolution of what it is that you're doing and how you're earning a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And the first destination is just that first point on the map for you. So whether it's your dream job or you're kind of sort of lukewarm about where you end up, which I hope you find your dream job, but it's not a lifetime commitment. Stick it out for a year or two, learn some great skills, have some transferable skills, have some technical skills under your belt, and you will be that much more attractive to other employers should you decide, you know what, this wasn't a great fit for me. But also, on the other hand, you could find out that this is truly what you love to do and you want to pursue the thing that you didn't think you really wanted in the first place.
Yeah. I think some people like first jobs are not your last jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, just you got so much more in front of you.
But there's also the concept of a job within a company changing as well.
Totally.
I was speaking with the head of talent acquisition for Starbucks, and she has been with Starbucks for upwards of 20 years, and she said she's had 10 different careers because she's worked in corporate social responsibility, recruiting, training, lean process improvement, sales. She was a manager of a Starbucks store when she started.
Starbucks is a beast of an industry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people always just think of Starbucks as like the retail.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's so small of what they do.
So you can work for a large corporation or even a conglomerate corporation and have a bunch of different jobs over the course of 10 years at the same employer, technically,
right.
But still get interesting dynamic experiences and work in different roles. So whether it's a bunch of different companies or a small company or a monolithic company that you can work in different areas, it is just a path for you to be flexible and learn new things and always be open to new opportunities.
I think that's a great launching off point to talk about companies and brand name recognition of companies and where people are now calculate. That's another conversation I had with a senior recently about, well, that company that offered me that fantastic salary and that fantastic job is not Disney. You know, and you know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't have that whatever. So can we talk about some companies that, like Starbucks, for example, I don't think people are thinking, I don't think engineers are thinking that Starbucks is looking to hire because they think, why would I work at Starbucks? Like that sentence right there. Like, it's like, I did that in high school, you know, like that. And so I think another example is Target. Right, Target is recruiting consistently, and they that's a giant corporation doing a lot of things, whether that's with technology or logistics, or I mean they're working hard on the online side of things in addition to the retail side of things. What are some others that are out there that I think students are overlooking?
Well, to start, large companies in any industry need engineers in any aspect. If you're
there's no such thing. People think the aerospace industry is where my aerospace engineering major is going to go, but it's no, let's just talk about all of them, right?
Yes, exactly. So if you're talking about engineers and all the engineering disciplines, let's just look at computer science.
Yeah.
Every company has an IT department. Every company uses technology nowadays, pretty much. So the opportunities aren't really limited to your sector. Bringing back my friend who did chemical engineering, worked for Chevron, and now works for a tech company doing operations. You can work in a bunch of different areas of engineering at a large company. I think another thing to bring up is small startup companies or just smaller companies in general. These companies usually offer, more flexible leadership development for you. You can move to a bunch of different areas. You can usually get a lot better culture in smaller companies if you're interested in that more smaller, close-knit culture as opposed to being a part of a large company. So understanding that maybe the brand isn't the most important thing to you is important for exploration as well for students. Your ultimate happiness and job satisfaction isn't going to be tied to a name necessarily.
Right. But all those big names are here recruiting too. What are some of those names that are here consistently?
And I would say that probably the largest ones would be Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Accenture, Boeing, Facebook, Northrop Grumman, a lot of the household names. Cisco, NVIDIA is another large company that's recruiting on campus regularly.
And just to go through that list for a quick second, if I'm listening on the outside of this, I'm hearing computer science. And so let's break down that misnomer that those aren't just hiring computer science students.
Sure. So we also have larger companies that are hiring for industrial and systems, right?
Right.
Biomedical, Massimo, civil, ACOM. We have SCS engineers for environmental. We do have a lot of companies hiring in those areas as well. The larger companies, the name brand, aerospace, a lot of the computer sciences, they also are hiring for other areas too. Northrop Grumman is coming on campus in a few weeks, and they're hiring for aerospace, mechanical, computer science, industrial systems, informatics, and civil too. So those were all the majors they listed in their information session. So even the larger companies that are attached to an industry, quote unquote, are not necessarily attached to that industry.
Right. And so one particular degree does not mean higher success necessarily, because it's just it's the transferable skill. It's the idea that you're an engineer, you have the ability to solve problems. You may have studied one thing, but you can apply that ability to solve problems in a lot of different areas, and everyone's hiring practically everyone. We have, I know you all brought some data too, as far as some really cool things that have been going on recently with our graduating classes. So we got some big companies out there. How successful are our students when they're graduating? What are they doing after they graduate?
Yeah, so over the course of the last several years, we've been really involved with trying to get more information about where our graduates are ending up, whether that be they're moving into full-time job positions, or they're moving on to graduate school, or maybe they're doing something else completely. So I just pulled the latest information from our database that has, I believe, 3.5 years of first destination information. And of the students or alumni that responded, 72% of them went on to full-time jobs. About 26% of them went on to graduate school, whether that be a master's, PhD, or something else, just continuing their education. And about 2% went on to volunteer or join the military or do something completely different. We'll just categorize that as other.
Yeah, service, some support. Yeah, there's a lot of different variables there.
Yes.
And so practically 3/4, this is aggregate, you're saying, of basically the last 4 years, 3 and 4 years?
Right.
Okay. And so about 3/4 of our students are going straight on into industry and some sort of job that they're doing across all these variety of things that are out there. And the other quarter approximately are going into graduate school. And the graduate school, that's a number of different degrees that we know of. Do we know any information about the degrees that they're seeking afterwards for graduate school?
Right. A lot of them are continuing on in engineering to get either a master's degree in engineering, and again, that kind of spans a wide range of majors, or some are pursuing more research and doing their PhDs, and they want to become full-time researchers once they're done with that, or faculty members at universities across the globe. And so they do a very wide variety. I can't say that you can really pigeonhole a Viterbi student as doing one thing over another, because the experiences are just so varied.
Totally. And do you have any information regarding salary?
Absolutely. So that is one of the, highlights I think a lot of students like to share with us regarding their first destination.
they like replying with that number.
Yeah, mostly because they're making a lot of money. I look at their salary information, I'm thinking, man, I should have been an engineer. So on average, the starting salary for our bachelor's level alumni is $83,000, which is great. 25% higher than the national average for engineering majors.
That's amazing. So the national average of undergraduates seeking a bachelor's degree in some sort of engineering field is right around $66,000 per year, what we looked up for nationwide in the last graduating class. And our graduates are earning, on average, 25% more.
Right, that's huge.
That is huge. That is huge. Do employers talk to you about the difference between our graduates and others? I mean, can we? That's some interesting data. Can we anecdotally understand that a little bit better?
About Viterbi students versus other schools?
Yeah, of course other schools are great, but do they ever mention certain things about us?
I think so. In fact, we at our Career Connections office actually have something called an ally program where employers can increase their visibility and awareness to students by participating in more events and being more involved. And we have a number of different companies that participate in that specifically just to seek out USC students. A lot of our companies are coming back in leadership positions, alumni in leadership positions that want to come back and hire Trojans. Trojans hiring Trojans. And a lot of them do cite that they want to create a specific relationship with USC because of how exceptional their employees are that come from the school, which is always good to hear from an employer relations side, because I think it makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to sell them anything because they already see how great the students are that are coming out of this program. But I think that it also shows in just the number of events that they do and the time they take to come to campus. A lot of companies are from the East Coast, Texas, Florida, the Bay Area even, and they're flying down here multiple times throughout the academic year just to engage with our students. And a lot of times they're not even hiring events, like they're just engagement events just to create relationships with the students here.
I want to come back to the engagement events in just a quick second, because I think there's some really cool things going on there. And I think companies are trying to compete with one another as how cool their events are. So I want to put a pin in that topic for a quick second. But I get a really brief intersection with employers and recruiters every once in a while when they have kids coming to college. And this is it's happening more and more. And where I'll be at an event or I'll be working with someone and they happen to be the parent, the dad, the mom, whatever, is a recruiter for, Fluor or Johnson & Johnson or whatever. And they take a moment, and it could be brown nosing because their kid hasn't gotten admitted yet, but which I'm very well aware of. But the ones that do this are incredibly genuine in their kind of unsolicited praise. And what I thought was really cool, I had two examples in the last 6 months. I was in the Bay Area, and I was giving a presentation to about 1,000 people that were in the Bay Area. Weird, they're all interested in engineering. And at the end, students asked me a bunch of questions, and then his dad is standing behind him, and he just stops, and he looked. I thought he didn't like what was going on because he just had this really judgmental face on, and then he comes up to me, and I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to hear it now. And he comes up and he hands me his card. And he says, I just want to let you know, whatever you guys are doing there at USC, keep doing it. Because when we hire USC grads, they're above and beyond better than anyone else because they just get it. They get people, they get working with people, they understand how to problem solve, they have the technical skill set, but they're not wound up in this environment of having to do everything by themselves and stressing out. And he's a senior engineer at Apple. And he said, if it was up to me, we're only going to hire USC grads after that. And I said, I need to get that as a quote, and we're going to put it in our recruiting materials from here on out. So I'm unofficial. And then he came to Discover and said the same thing again. I said, I remember what you said. And he goes, it's true. It's true. I'll say it again. I'll say it over and over again.
Awesome.
And then the other one is your recruiter.
Yeah.
Steve?
Steve, my director, yeah.
Yeah. So Steve, and this is at Edwards Life Sciences. And he comes unsolicited. Again, I know his daughter is seeking admission. But he comes unsolicited, and I have an email I have to forward to you all actually about this, about how because he recruited you and loves you and wants every future Edwards Life Science person to be at RIA. And says there's just something different about these students, and then he's saying this is where I want my daughter to be because I can see that it's going to be a technical skill set, but what he outlined was in an engineering profession, we get a lot of talented, incredibly brilliant engineers that burn out automatically. They come in because all they know how to do is the math or the technical side of things, and they don't understand how to work in teams. They don't know how to work inside of a larger structure. They don't know how to communicate effectively. They don't understand how to be flexible in some of their thoughts and kind of come up with kind of this kind of group environment of problem solving. And he goes, I got one I'm supervising right now that's having a lot of trouble, and he's on his last warning before we're gonna get rid of him because he's not being productive to the team, but he's brilliant. And he goes, and with USC students, and Ria is a great example of this, that's not who they are. And so I just wanted to share that with you all, that we get these types of pieces of feedback anecdotally. I think I get it again because they're trying to get their kids admitted, but I think it speaks volume that they all want their kids to then go through USC for that type of structure. So I don't know where that was going, but I wanted to share that.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of speaks to the Viterbi culture at large, and Viterbi Career Connections is obviously a part of that, where we strongly push Dean Yortsos's Engineering Plus. The Engineering Plus X, and your X could be a number of different things, whether that be being heavily involved in student organizations, volunteer work, working at some of the local elementary schools, or whatever that happens to be. And I really think that that's what makes such well-rounded engineering students, is the idea that we are not telling you come in and get straight A's and then you'll be landing your dream job. It's bringing your whole self to being a student. It's bringing your whole self to work, and the fact that you are not just an engineer.
Right. Totally. Let's go back to engagement. You said employers are seeking to create more engagement events. What does that mean?
Well, I think that just in the time that I've worked with employers here, the conversations that I have with them are focused on two sort of main buckets. One of them is logistics, right? We want to come on campus this day, we want to interview, we want to go to this career fair. But there's another part of it, a larger conversation that we always have, where they ask, how can we be involved more? Yes, we want to recruit. Yes, we want to get great employees, but there's more to it. It's not a transactional relationship, right? We want to create a relationship with your school and with your students, and how can we do that? So we want to come on campus with no agenda, with no goal other than to get to know the students better. And I think that that's really great and valuable, and we've started creating a lot of programming around that for companies. So some of them are just helping students understand more about the company so they can make decisions later on, like site tours, information sessions where they would have more informal trivia, or have alumni come back and tell their personal story about how much they like the culture, understanding company culture too. We have an upcoming event as well with the Center for Engineering Diversity, mock interviews. And it is not a recruiting event, but we've had 24 companies sign up, like PayPal, TripAdvisor, W.E. O'Neill, to reference a non-computer sciences one, that are just coming on campus just to help students learn more about interviewing. And I think that that's really great to see that they're coming on campus as recruiters, but also as engineers, getting their department heads to come out and interact with the students and create relationships with them.
That's really cool. Is there any event over both of your combined experiences that stands out as probably one of the most unique?
I want to say that Viterbi Trek is probably one of the most unique experiences and programs that we put on in our office. And it's where we take a group of students, we fly them up to the Silicon Valley, and we do site tours at 6 or more different companies. And that has been a really cool experience, because usually each site visit is going to be anywhere between 2 and 5 hours. And so in that time, companies set up Q&A sessions, they set up networking time, they really walk through what the company culture is, but also they talk about their personal experiences on how they got to where they are today, starting when they were a student in college. And so that is a really cool experience for students to be able to participate in that and go see a wide variety of companies in the Silicon Valley. It's more of a learning experience and exploration in terms of, I really like this idea of working for a huge company in the Bay Area that has a campus and free ice cream and video games. But we also go to places that we spent 4 hours in a conference room over lunch, and that turned out to be the students that went on the trek. That was their absolute favorite visit because it was getting to talk to Viterbi alumni and really getting their questions answered, like questions that I don't think they would ask an executive at Facebook. They were asking, these alumni, and they were being real and raw with their answers. And so it was just a really, really good experience for them to understand the process, not only of how they are wildly successful now, but how their journey brought them to that point.
There's a lot of talk in education about generational changes and Generation Z and yada, yada, yada. What do you think, given this current generation of students, what do employers need to know about them, and what do the students need to know about the realities of getting a job? I'm already biased in my question, but
I guess I can speak to what employers should know.
Yeah, what made me think about this was a campus with ice cream and bicycles. That's what led me down this path, by the way.
Well, I think generationally speaking, if we think about 30, 40 years ago, an adult would sometimes go to college, sometimes go to trade school, and then they'd get a job at a company and they'd work at that company forever. Yeah. And, what mattered was pension and, job security, and it didn't really matter 100% if you liked the 8 hours a day you spent there, as long as, you got paid and you provided for your family. That's very, very different now for students that are entering the workforce. I can say that they care a lot more about work-life balance, culture fit, how it feels to go to work every day, who they work with, the difference they're making in the world, the impact they're making on the world and making the world a better place. I know engineering is a big part of that because engineering is all about innovation and creating new ways of doing things for the environment, for society. So that's something that I think weighs a lot in a student's decision when they're looking at a full-time opportunity is what is the company doing to make the world a better place? What is the corporate responsibility side of their operations and things like that? I would also say that the little perks that you would get from working at a big company, like the free ice cream, not necessarily that they're seeking out specifically free ice cream, but just the idea that, hey, we care about you and we value you, and you're not just a sum of the work you do every day, but we want to make you feel comfortable and happy, and I think that that's what that translates to.
Work and play, not just work. Especially at some of those bigger companies where you may not work a standard 8 to 5. They need to throw in some perks so that, when you're at your desk at 10 o'clock, you just run and get some ice cream.
Everyone's always excited about the ice cream or the bar or all these free food that I get. So, because they don't want you to leave. Yeah,
that becomes your home, and then your apartment just becomes where you store your stuff.
It's like when they start saying, they have nap pods. I'm like, because you won't go home.
And sometimes that's exactly what somebody wants to do is they want to live where they work. And it's great because, hey, you can get a $10 haircut on this campus and they do your dry cleaning for free. But there's also the same idea is what students need to understand is that the rate of change of business is happening at an exponential rate. It's no longer these incremental changes. It's constant disruption, which has really led to the whole idea of this gig economy where you're not signing up for a job, you're signing up for a gig, and then when that's done, you move on to the next gig. And so employers, some of the, faster paced employers, that's how they're doing their hiring, and that's their business model. But then you also have the very traditional companies. I can just think of like the Big Four in the financial industry hires a lot of engineers too, and they're very much a traditional company.
Right.
Yeah.
But even they are changing.
Starting to change. Focused on deliverables. Right. So like we're hiring this hire from this company to come in and lead this new project, and we're going to put this out. And if it works out and they like us and we like them and they like a new idea, then they'll create a new deliverable inside this team. Just a different perspective on, I love the gig term, but it's just like this idea, like we got this thing we want to do and we need these people.
Right.
Almost like a contract.
Right. It's looking very much like contract work.
Yeah.
Sort of like if you were to go into a consulting company and you are working for that company, but you're also assigned companies that you're helping to consult with. And once the project is done, you move on.
Yeah.
I would say, too, companies are evolving to make their, employees stay longer. There is an interest in retaining valuable talent, and with the unemployment rate being so low, companies are starting to get creative and trying to think of different ways to keep employees as well. I know that one company in our fall fair was getting interviewed, Abbott was getting interviewed because they have a new program they're piloting where instead of a pension, the amount of years that you stay at the company translates into them contributing to pay off your student loans for you.
Wow.
Huh.
Just another way that a company is trying to get new grads to stay a little bit longer, I think.
Right. Longer term benefits, whose benefits package is going to be better for the long term, and family planning and things like that. I mean, all these, it's a flipping where 30, 40 years, we started with, get the job, get locked in. It's kind of the companies have the power, and then that's now flipped to a workforce can have the power if it all works out well. And so how do we keep them if we're losing talent down the road?
Right. We had talked about, the fact that Viterbi students make on average 25% more in their first job, but it also doesn't always link back to how many zeros are on your paycheck, what would make you stay in a position, but also what makes sense for your life.
Totally. One last question before we start closing it up here. From a prospective student standpoint, we get a lot of questions. Obviously, we bring in students from all around the world, and just for the ease of the conversation, let's just talk about the U.S. for a quick second. And you get students that are coming from, let's say, Texas or the Midwest or the East Coast, and just big general blocks of the country. And sometimes parents are worried, like one of two things: what kind of jobs are available in California is one of the questions I get. And I'm like, why are you limiting it to California? So I want to talk about that for a quick second. And second thing is, will my baby ever come home? There's a layered set of questions there to you, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So actually, California is the number one state where alumni stay, but they also go to Washington on the West Coast. They go to New York on the East Coast. Texas is a big place where our alumni stay. So there are opportunities across the United States and also globally. We have alumni all over the world. And so I think the only limits that students and alumni have on where they end up is the limits that they put on themselves.
Totally. Because if you think of these companies, my favorite question is always, where is Boeing located?
Everywhere,
right.
Including in space.
Yeah. So, like to say, like sometimes people say, I'm going to go to USC because I want a job at Boeing. Cool, but they're drawing comparisons to, because Boeing has obviously a big part of their headquarters is here. But you could say the same thing about Tacoma, outside of Seattle, Washington, because they're building the planes up there. Or you can say Huntsville, Alabama, because they got a whole other production facility down there. DC has big Boeing headquarters, right? I mean, all these things are really interesting. A company is not located in one spot, and international in a lot of situations. Just the recent news of Amazon and HQ2, and if you're going to work for Amazon, where are you working? If you're going to work for Facebook, where are you working? We just heard in LA news this week, Google just rented out West Side Pavilion.
Right.
Where's West Side Pavilion?
Playa Vista.
Good question.
Okay.
Good question. is it West LA? Like, no, so Google just rented out, I don't know, maybe no one knows, West Side Pavilion, the shopping mall on Pico.
Yeah.
They just rented that whole thing out. And so there's going to be a new Google office.
Yeah, 14-year lease in 2022.
Wow.
When it starts.
That's huge.
But they were in Playa Vista, right?
They're
Or they still
are? There.
And Santa Monica and Venice.
Yeah.
They have offices.
So again, I don't even know. It's like, so they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Even in LA.
Even in LA, there's multiple locations.
So the question is, are you going to work in Google LA? Well, which office? Are you in the West LA office? Or are you in the Santa Monica office? In the Playa Vista office?
Yeah, I had a friend that just started working at Salesforce, and they have an office in Santa Monica, but it's like a mobile office, so it's like a WeWork. So you can go in if you want to have an office environment, because he works from home. He can go in there and just like sit in an open office and work for the day, or he can stay home and work from home.
Yeah, who needs an office these days, right?
Everything's online.
Everything is. The other question I get is somewhat idealistic, and I get the idealistic sense of this question, but I do get it a lot, so I want to raise it with you and see what you guys think. So I want to be an engineer, but I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day.
That is totally a realistic expectation to have, because one, it depends on the type of engineer you are.
Yeah.
What you end up doing, but also within each engineering school is a variety of things that you can be doing. Kind of moving it back to chemical engineering, you could be in a lab sitting in front of a computer analyzing chemicals. You could be in a plant making sure that things are running smoothly and doing testing in the plant. So it's sort of like up to you what you want to do and what your work style is and your preferences. We have lots of different tools in our office, and also from firsthand knowledge from where our students end up and when our alumni come back and give advice. We have lots of tools out there to help you explore within each major, the jobs that you sit at a desk, the jobs where you work in teams, the jobs where you're out in the field doing something. Right. So again, the only limits are the ones that you place on yourself.
Totally. And I think it goes back to the going to the events and trying to stay away from the word networking, but talking to people, engaging with people, asking questions, understanding culture, and understanding what the job's about. Because I think some people place those stereotypes on a degree, and therefore place the stereotypes on an industry, or place those stereotypes on a company, right? So like, I don't want to have blank major because I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day, which means I'm eliminating the possibilities of working at all of these companies, because those are the companies tied to that major. And I wanted to kind of bring that together to help students realize, just go and just talk to people and see what's out there.
Right.
And in the exploration, phase as well, we talk about getting information and going to events, but also internships. An internship while you're in school at USC, gives you a plethora of knowledge about what it's going to be like to work at that company. It's a great way to get paid to try out a job. And if it's really great and you love it, that can translate into a full-time offer after you graduate. Or if it's not your favorite thing, you learned a lesson and you move on and you look for something else, next year.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, as one final thought for both of you, what is the one thing you want our current students to know about Career Connections or this upcoming semester, or what do you want them walking away from with this little podcast episode?
Really, what I would like students to know is that we are available to walk you through any process that you have questions about when it comes to your professional development, whether that be, how do I evaluate a job offer? How do I negotiate salary? Where do I even start looking for an internship? I'm a freshman, what do I do now? Any question that you have regarding your path, your professional development, sort of like the whole idea, if you have an idea in your head of where you want to get to, come in and talk to us. We're available, and we'd love to see you. Cool.
Great.
I would say the one thing to remember is that you won't know until you know. So
That's not how engineers work. They prepare. They know ahead of time. They do research.
There's no algorithm. You can research, like I said, career outcomes, and your career journey is half preparation, but it's half luck, right?
Yeah.
And it's more about learning about what you want and who you are, and you shouldn't be so hung up on that achievement or that one thing you have in your mind. So definitely just learn as much as you can and have fun.
Awesome way to end. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. Good job.
And that just about wraps up this week's episode. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our first episode after our winter break, but we're back and better than ever. We have a lot of exciting episodes planned for this semester, so stick with us. Follow us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. We're actually on Spotify now, so if you listen to podcasts on Spotify, definitely shoot us a follow. And we'll catch you next time. Peace out and fight on.